I'm going to be skewered by the D&D community. I'm going to be skewered by the tabletop gaming industry in general for this, but I don't like the rule of cool. I use it, but I don't like it. And we're going to get into that today. What's up guys, Chris here. Today I'm talking to you guys about the rule of cool today and why I personally don't like it, even though that I use it 90% of the time. So that in mind here, let's just get this out of the way. This is an opinion piece. This is an opinion piece. This is an opinion piece. This does not mean this is how you need to run your game. You run your game how you want to run your game, and I'll run my game the way I want to. And for the most part, they're pretty lax rules that I use, but you know. Now what is the rule of cool? Let's say for example, some caster wants to use prestidigitation and use it to create sparks. And those sparks they're trying to use to ignite something and make a fire out of it. Now on one hand, there's actually a spell for that. There are a lot of fire spells created to make fires appear. Whereas this spellcaster wants to use this fire to say, for example, I don't know, blow up a pot of methane. These are things that typically wouldn't be able to be done with a spell, but the spellcaster is trying to use this cantrip for. The rule of cool would be saying, you know what, that's a great idea, that's cool, we're gonna let that happen. Whereas not doing that would say, well, the rules say that it can't be used for that, so we're just gonna pass on it. Now I have two different standpoints on this. I personally think that the rule of cool has its time, has its place, and is very valid for a DM to decide. If I as a DM decide that I wanna let my caster do that thing and the caster's prestidigitation uses sparks and just blows this thing up, that's fantastic, that's awesome, that's me choosing as a DM to do that. I actually really like that. As a DM, I absolutely love the rule of cool because in that example, as a DM, I can decide that prestidigitation does in fact cause enough sparks and cause enough heat to actually cause that explosion to happen, and it lets my caster feel really badass. And if, for example, they were out of spell slots and if they only had a cantrip, that would be a perfect way for them to find an escape to this encounter that may have otherwise killed them, or find a creative solution to this trap or this problem or this puzzle, anything of the sorts. That gives them a creative outlet. But by rule of cooling it in that one scenario, you have to consider the fact that moving forward, prestidigitation should be able to ignite things with its sparks. And that is a decision being made right now that is going to be carried on forward. Because if you say this time you're allowed to do that, but next time you're not, it creates a, well, why not? What's different about this one? It may set the expectations for the players that you're willing to change things on the fly, or may give them the false impression that that was mundane item, this is magical for some reason, when in reality, no, you just don't want them to blow this thing up, but if they were able to blow it up before, they should be able to blow it up now. And I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with DM's rule of cooling and saying, you know what, fuck it, that's how we're gonna do things. What I don't like is whenever players or non-DMs or people who aren't the DM of a specific group try to say rule of cool. There are a lot of times whenever I post a video onto TikTok and it's a video explaining how I handled a situation or how my party handled a situation or just a general rule clarification on a situation, and there's a dozen people in my comments every single time about rule of cool. And while I agree, if you are DMing, rule of cool is fantastic. But if you're not DMing, that's not your place to say. Nobody else can tell me how to DM my games. If I rule of cool something, that's fantastic, but I don't have to. These rulebooks might be guidelines, and they might be fantastic guidelines, and I can deviate from these whenever I want. But there are some times when the rulebooks genuinely just need to be considered. There are mechanics that they put in here that take care of problems that you may run into. Maybe you're trying to build an entirely new system that these things already take care of. You might not like them, and that's whenever you can change them. Personally, I think that's the best way to handle things, is just looking at the book, using the book for reference, and then deviating from there. Because at the end of the day, that's more play tested than anything I run is. One-shot mechanic that I may be coming up with, they might have spent months writing and planning out. Although knowing Wizard, it's more likely a week and a half. And that's why I generally don't like the rule of cool. For the most part, I like to stick with the book, and yes, I will rule of cool things, but I don't like how everybody just assumes the rule of cool is the way to do things. Your game might be completely different from mine. I run a pretty lax, abraca fuck you type of campaign, whereas I have a lot of friends that'll roll a really in-depth RP heavy nitty-gritty campaign where everything is super serious and realistic and grounded. They use the rules way more than I ever will. They make a lot of homebrew rules and they rule of cool a handful of things. But for the most part, I just say, fuck it. If it works well for the story, we're setting a precedence right now. And if it works well for the characters and they enjoy it, we're setting a precedence now. Rule of cool is gonna be how that operates. But that can't be the case for everything, and it's not on anybody else to decide what you as a DM want to do or should do rule of cool wise. I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of going on this tangent because I agree that the rule of cool is a very good thing to use and it should be used by DMs at their discretion, but I don't think that it should be the solution for everybody for everything. I don't think it's anybody's place to just come in and say, hey, that's how you should do it. You should rule of cool it whenever you have no idea somebody else's game style. And I feel like I should say this goes out to nobody in particular. It's just in general thing I've seen online with DMs or people who've just gotten into D&D because it's a very popular game system now. And if you feel like the rules constrain you just a little too much for your liking and you want to kind of change things up with that, maybe D&D is not the game system for you. If you want a rules-light system, there's a lot of really cool rules-light systems, and I'm gonna be going to a lot more videos on those here pretty soon. But for the most part, if you're wanting to play D&D, you're gonna get a lot of rules, and we're not always gonna agree with the rules. There's a handful of things that I genuinely think in the rules are fucked up and don't work well, that make no sense. But that's how they're written, and I've worked my way around them. I completely changed them myself. But that's not gonna be the solution for everybody, and it's not on me to tell somebody that does it that way that they're wrong. And a special thank you to all my Patreon supporters. If you wanna help support this channel on Patreon, down below is a link in the description. Clicking that will lead you to my Patreon page where I have 3 different tiers. A $3 tier that lets you name a character for the Squallen Saga, $5 tier that nets you early access and your name in the credits above me, and a $10 tier which gives you voting power on my next videos, and a verbal shout out, which will be coming after this whenever I can read my scripts, because I don't have my script in front of me right now. I should probably get that written out. And a massive thank you to our top tier patrons, Corey and Amaldi and Shepard. Without you two, we won't be able to do the things that we're able to do, and I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. So with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click that little subscribe button down below, click that little share button to share this with anybody who you think needs to know this information. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later, guys. Damn you, AC units! I was trying to record! And here we are, just AC-ifying. It does feel nice, though. It does feel nice, though, since I turned the fan off and bloop. Okay, I'm gonna go turn that off now so I can have clean audio.